A long, long time ago, in a faraway forest in the country India, there lived a crow. Caw, 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 caw. And her name was Miss Craw. Now Miss Craw was looking for true love, and soon she found Mr. Crow. Caw, 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 caw. It was love at first sight. And then Miss Craw and Mr. Crow got married. Mrs. Craw now told Mr. Crow, I need you to look for a lovely, lovely tree where we are going to build a nest. And so Mr. Crow found the perfect tree. It was a huge banyan tree. It was by the lake and it had big, strong branches. Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow started building their special nest. They picked up twigs and sticks and dried leaves, and pretty soon a lovely nest was ready. And both of them were very, very excited because they were ready to have babies. Pretty soon, Mrs. Crow laid 6 eggs. Caw, 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 caw. Her happiness knew no bounds. Mr. Crow and Mrs. Crow waited impatiently for the eggs to hatch. And then one day, bloop, 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 the eggs hatched and 6 wobbly necks came out of the eggs, and the little baby crows went caw, 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 caw. Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow were so happy. They were so happy with their new brood. And then their entire day went in looking for food for their babies. They flew about everywhere in search of tiny worms that their babies loved. They would look around for food all day long and at night feed their hungry babies. Now, nobody knew, but the big banyan tree had a knothole, and in that knothole lived Sanaka. Sanaka was strong. Sanaka was sinewy. And Sanaka loved eating baby crows. Sanaka waited patiently for a few days and observed Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow, and noticed what was the time that they left their nest in the morning and what was the time that they came back. And then one day he decided to treat himself to delicious baby crows. And so one day when Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow had gone looking for food for their babies, Sanaka came out of his knothole. And that day, Sanaka had a lovely feast. That night, when Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow came back, they were devastated when they saw their empty nest. Caw, 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 caw! Caw, 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 caw! They cried and they cried and they cried. And pretty soon the entire banyan tree was full of crows who had come to mourn. They all cried. That night, all that echoed in the jungle was the sad caw, 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 caw of Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow. It was a sad, sad night. The next morning, Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow decided to seek revenge. They wanted to teach Sanaka, the wicked, wicked Sanaka, a lesson for his cruelty. And that's when Mrs. Kra decided to seek help from their wise friend Valupi Sahib. Valupi Sahib was a fox, and Valupi Sahib was very, very, very clever. And so Mrs. Kra and Mr. Kra went to meet Valupi Sahib. Valupi Sahib knew everything about everyone. Oh, hello, Mrs. Kra and Mr. Kra. Oh, I heard about the terrible, terrible thing that Sanaka did to your babies. I wanted to tell you that is not a good banyan tree to have your nest in. But you know what? I was so distracted. I had so much to do in the forest. It completely slipped my mind that Sanaka, that old fellow, really needs to be taught a lesson.
Which is why we are here to you, Valupi Sahib. We need your help.
Oh, I have a lovely plan to teach that wicked, wicked snake a lesson.
And what is your plan? Tell us your plan,
said Mrs. Kra and Mr. Kra eagerly. And Valupi Sahib whispered the plan in their ears. And when they heard the plan, they were very, very excited. They could barely wait to execute it. The next morning, they waited, as Valupi had advised them, for the queen and her friends to come to the lake for a swim. The queen removed her beautiful jewelry and kept it on a stone. And the guards stood there, guarding the jewelry and the expensive clothes. Then the queen and her friends jumped into the lake and splashed about. They were swimming happily, singing songs. Just then, like Valupi had advised, Mrs. Kra went and started cawing over the guard's ears and head. Caw, 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 caw. The guards got really, really bothered, and they started using their sticks to shoo away this crow. Mrs. Kra went on and on, trying to peck the guards. Caw, 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 caw. The guards were so annoyed, they started running behind the crow with their sticks. That was the opportunity for Mr. Crow to act. He quickly leaped down and picked up the beautiful necklace that belonged to the queen. And with the necklace in his beak, he flew. He flew with all his might. The necklace was so heavy, but he carried it in his beak, and he flew and he flew and he flew. Just then, the queen from the lake noticed, my jewelry, my necklace, my grandmother's precious necklace. That crow is stealing my necklace. Help, help. The guards who were distracted by Mrs. Kra saw what was happening. Yes, we're going there, Your Majesty. We are running behind the crow. They started running behind Mr. Crow. Mr. Crow flew as fast as he could with the beak so heavy. And like Valupi Sahib had advised him, Mr. Crow dropped the necklace in the knothole of Sanaka. The guards saw Mr. Crow dropping the necklace into the knothole, and after dropping the necklace, the crow went and sat on top of the branches. The guards were not bothered about the crow, they wanted the necklace. And so with their sticks, they started putting the sticks inside the knothole. They dug really hard trying to look for the necklace. And from inside the knothole, on one of the sticks, came Sanaka, completely entangled. And what else was entangled in his sinewy body was the queen's necklace. The guards started lashing at him with their sticks. Sanaka was not strong enough to battle and fight the guards. Sanaka put up a brave fight, but the sticks were much too strong. Pretty soon, Sanaka breathed his last, and the guards picked up the necklace and went back to their queen. Once the guards had left, all the crows that were sitting on the banyan tree started crowing, and in shouting joy this time. Caw, 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 caw. It was indeed a happy, happy time. And then many other crows came and built their nests in that huge banyan tree, which was now the safest banyan tree to build a nest on. And Mrs. Crow and Mr. Crow, every once in a while, had a brood of baby crows. And you know what? They made sure to name at least one baby from the brood Valupi, after their kind, clever and helpful friend Valupi Sahib the fox. And they all lived happily ever after.
Wobbly, wobbly, wobbly. Mourn, mourn, mourn. Entangled, entangled, entangled. Sinewy, sinewy, sinewy. Knothole, knothole, knothole.